Manifestation is about allowing things to happen. But the reason why we find it to be a struggle is because we're living in resistance. With manifestation, you are co-creating with that divine creative power, but you have to also put in that effort. It's not just about putting it out there and hoping that someone comes in and saves the day. In order to manifest a new reality, you need to become a new version of yourself. The more specific and clear you are about what you want, then you can reverse engineer in terms of, okay, who do I need to be in order to draw that in? Your emotions are your greatest gift. And so when you feel that emotion of jealousy or envy, it's usually telling you that, hey, that is something I want for myself. In order for us as humans to thrive, we need to be in a safe environment. And as much as you can love your kids, but if you're not feeling safe and secure within yourself, you're also going to create a very unstable environment for your kids. And that's going to affect what they're able to manifest as they grow up.
How do you frame your mind when you're in such a negative state to actually still see that positivity?
The law of assumption, when it comes to manifestation, whatever you assume to be true, you're always proven right.
Hey parents, welcome to another episode of the Modern Indian Parent Podcast, a podcast that is redefining parenting in Indian families. I'm Sanchita Daswani, a pediatric nutritionist, and every week we bring you episodes to help you own your modern parenting choices, even if Nani and Dadi don't agree with them. Now, today's topic of the podcast is not necessarily to do with parenting, but it is a very, very important topic that so many parents are interested in and want to know more about. And it is a topic that is something that has resonated with me since I was a kid. And it's something that I've recently gotten back into. And for me as a parent, it has been just life-changing. And the topic is manifestation. Now, I know a lot of you have been hearing about manifestation, seeing videos about it, watched certain movies and documentaries on it, but you want to know more. And today we are so lucky to have with us Khushbu Thadani. She is a manifestation mentor and founder of the wellness consulting business K-Way. Over the past 12 years, she has empowered thousands of individuals across the globe with the tools to get past their internal blocks and tap into their potential, so they are able to manifest their desired results in their body, bank account, and relationships. And Khushbu has been a mentor of mine as well, and she will be joining us on the podcast today for all of you out there who want to know the one-on-one on manifesting so that you can start manifesting your dream life. And we're so excited to have her here. So let's welcome her to the podcast. Welcome, Khushbu, to the Modern Indian Parent Podcast. Thank you so much for being here today. How are you doing?
Thank you firstly for having me. I am doing really well and very excited for our conversation on all things manifestation and parenting.
You know, we go way back. I remember that I contacted you over 10 years ago when I was living in India, and at that time you were a health coach. And I remember just messaging you a few weeks ago saying like, I remember that on your plan, I was literally eating pasta and bread, and I was actually like losing weight. And after a few years, I realized that it was just so much more than what we were doing, but it was the mindset. And after that, also, I've done some of your programs. I've attended a lot of your workshops as well on manifestation because I'm such a huge fan of it, the whole idea, and I really truly believe in it. And the reason that we have you on the podcast today is because, you know, today as parents, we're so overwhelmed with our daily life. And I think taking that time to focus on our self-care, our mental health is really important. And for me, manifestation, it has given me that inspiration, that kind of excitement about life. And I really want other parents to feel inspired by this episode. And no one better than you, Khushbu, to really get into this. So first, I just love to know a bit more about how did you get into manifestation? I know you were a health coach. So how did that whole journey happen?
Yeah. Firstly, thank you for all your kind words. And it's always been a pleasure to work with you. And I really appreciate everything you shared. And so a bit of background about how I started my manifestation journey. So my career has always been a reflection of where I've been at in my journey. So I grew up obese, tipped the scales about 200 pounds, went on to lose about 75 pounds, and realized that my passion lied in nutrition and helping people also manifest well, at that point I used the words lose weight. And so I did that for about 5 years, but I realized that those beliefs we tend to have, that once you lose the weight, you're going to feel super confident, you're going to feel amazing in yourself, that didn't quite hit it. Like, I was wearing nicer clothes and I was looking better, but I still felt inadequate. I still didn't feel good enough. And I was still doubting myself and living in fear. And that's when I realized I need to take care of my mental health. Something needed to shift. And that's, they say that when the student is ready, the teacher appears. And a couple of days after having that realization, I was on Instagram and came across a post on synchronicities, which led me to a YouTube video, which led me to books on manifestation. And initially it sounded amazing, but also too good to be true. But when you're desperate, you'll try anything. And so I decided I'm going to try this process of manifestation with little things, which if it didn't manifest, it wasn't going to make a difference to my life, such as, okay, thinking of a friend I haven't spoken to in months and letting her, and manifest her calling me, or manifesting a free cup of coffee. And as I started to see things change really fast, but also notice the quality of my life change as I felt more in control of my external world, that's when I started to play bigger. And then I started using the process of manifestation in the areas of my life which I really want to see shifts in. And since I started this journey intentionally, and the reason I say intentionally is because we've been manifesting since the day that we've been born. And we'll talk about it more in a bit, but most people are living on autopilot, which is why they find themselves stuck in patterns. And so once I started using this process intentionally, that's when I started to create 180 shifts in my business, my relationships, my overall quality of life. And that's why the work I do with my clients and what I share on my podcast, my social media, I can speak with so much conviction and clarity, because when you really understand how simple it is to change your life, you will see your entire life open up in ways you cannot even imagine. It's just about deciding to commit to being new so that you can manifest a new reality.
When I talk about manifestation, like I'm talking about it a lot. And my friends always look at me and they're like, wow, like, and I'll give them examples and they're like, this is amazing. But for them, for some reason, again, there's a block or something. So for all of the people listening out there, let's break it down and make it very simple for them first. Could you explain to us, what does manifestation even mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think the word now, manifestation, has become such a buzzword. And a lot of people dismiss it because there's so much conflicting advice around it, but also that notion of it being too easy. And we don't realize it, but most of us walk around with this subconscious programming that in order to see results, life has to be hard. And that's why when something comes in front of us that feels a little too simple, we dismiss it as it doesn't work. And at the crux of it all, manifestation is the phenomena that happens when you take something that was once part of your imagination and turn it into your reality by changing your state of being. So essentially, your external reality is a mirror reflection of your inner world. And so often people are trying to micromanage and control the external circumstances. But if you want to see your life change, you got to go to the root, and that's you. Because until you change, your life will keep mirroring more and more of who you're being.
Okay. And I have this book also, Manifest. So I always look
Yes.
at this book and I always look at your notes. Like, I literally have a 10-page document from the
That makes
program
me
I
so
did
happy
with
to
you.
hear.
So I
Yeah.
keep going back to that and the nervous system regulation. So I just want to read this one part where it says, to manifest means to make something happen. It's the ability to create the exact life that you want, to draw in anything that you desire and become the author of your own story. It looks and feels like magic, and we are all the magicians. And this is exactly what you're saying. And I think it's because of certain terms we use, like magic and magician. I think that's why so many people have a little bit of skepticalness when it comes around manifestation and the fact that it's too easy. I think also, why do you feel that there's some kind of little negativity around manifestation? Do you think it's because of things like documentaries like The Secret that have just brought this, like you think of it and then it appears? Because that, and I know you can totally explain this, it's not just that, but I think it's that perception that's been created.
Yeah. Well, two things before I'll touch on that question in a second, but that
Yeah.
quote you just read out, it was beautiful. But one thing which I just want to add a caveat to is, rather than feel like you have to make things happen, because when we feel like we have to make things happen, it comes from a place of control. But really, the way I approach it and the way I teach my clients is manifestation is about allowing things to happen, because we all have an endless stream of abundance, of love, of joy, of well-being that is flowing our way. But the reason why we find it to be a struggle, why we experience lack, is because we're living in resistance. And that resistance to life, whether it's because of fear, because of your doubts, your lack of self-belief, your lack of self-worth, that's why you stop that flow from coming into your life. And so the minute you actually do the work to change this, your inner state, that's when that stream of abundance, of love, of joy, whatever it is your heart desires, it can freely come towards you. Yeah. And so going back to your question about why do we have so much hesitation and doubt around this is, well, whether you look at manifestation from a spiritual energy point, that's one way. And it doesn't necessarily resonate with a lot of people. So when I first started manifestation, I dismissed it because I didn't resonate with this premise of energy and the woo-ness that comes with it. And so understanding from a neuroscience aspect and psychology aspect, it really helped me to lean in and understand it. And that's why for someone who is maybe doubting it, there are multiple different avenues that teach you the same way, whether it's quantum physics, whether it's neuroscience, whether it's religion, whether it's spirituality. But it all comes back to the core principle that you have 100% self agency when it comes to your life. But are you using it, or are you living like a victim and waiting for something to happen and hoping and endlessly praying? And especially if for people who are religious, it's very easy to outsource your power thinking there's a greater power that's going to come in. And with manifestation, you are co-creating with that divine greater power. But you have to also put in that effort. It's not just but putting it out there and hoping that someone comes in and saves the day.
Right. So basically, manifestation is when you're taking your inner thoughts and how you want your life to become, and you kind of put that energy out there, but you do the work for it. But at the same time, I think you have to be clear on your vision, but also allowing things to kind of take place and the universe to work for you in that way. Am I getting it right so far, or you want to clarify?
Yeah, I just want to add one more bit of it. So more than anything, with manifestation, you're becoming a new version of yourself. Because in order to manifest a new reality, you need to become a new version of yourself, because based on who you're being, your life will give you more circumstances, more people, and outcomes that mirror who you're being. And so when you're changing your thought processes, you're changing your perception, you're changing your identity, you're changing your habits, you're essentially letting go of your old self and you're stepping into a new version of yourself. And so the minute you step into a new version of yourself, that's when you're presented with something new. So just a quick example is, let's say someone has a history of always attracting men who cheat on her. And it's very easy to create a story that, oh, that's just how it is, all men cheat. But really come back to the common denominator. What is it within me that's even manifesting the same experience over and over again? It's probably because she's created a belief system about how men are. And now she's unknowingly expecting that to be the case for her. And then she keeps manifesting more of the same. But the minute she can start to say, you know what, I'm choosing to trust that there is a great man out there, or I'm choosing to believe that I can manifest something new. Now she's thinking like a different version of herself. And so what she sees mirrors back to her is going to look very different to her past. And going back to what I said at the start, it's about breaking those unwanted patterns. So patterns within yourself, so that those patterns you experience externally can also change.
So a major part of manifestation is becoming a different version of yourself, right? For the better. And the reason why I love manifestation is because, see, so many of us now, we go to therapy, which is super important as well. But like when I was doing therapy, for me, I felt like I was stuck in the past and I was stuck in my old ways. And the reason that manifestation really attracted me, because it was like, okay, this is what my life was, but now how do I want my life to play out? How am I going to be different? How am I going to show up differently? And it gave me that hope that it is possible. So let's break it down to a few of the major points about manifestation. So the first point is about how we talk about being clear on your vision and yes, what you want. And I know we see it all over about vision boards. So can you explain to us, because sometimes we don't know maybe what we want. So number one, how do we be clear on our vision if we're not 100% sure? And do you feel that vision boards are a great tool?
Perfect. Yeah. And a lot of times when people struggle to manifest, it's not because what they want is not possible, but it's because they don't even know what they want. And a lot of times people throw out these empty generic statements like, I just want more money, or I just want to manifest peace and serenity. And here's the thing, is that your idea of more money, your idea of peace, your idea of ease is very different to my idea. And it's literally like you going to a restaurant and telling the chef, I want food. And what he serves up might be what you're craving, or it could be something else that's not going to hit the spot for you. But if you can go into that restaurant and say, I want a penne arrabbiata with mushrooms, chilies, and a bit of Parmesan, when that dish comes in front of you, you're going to eat a bite and be, oh, this is exactly what I have been craving. And that's the same with your desires. The more specific and clear you are about what you want, then you can reverse engineer in terms of, okay, who do I need to be in order to draw that in? But now you can also let that divine energy, whether you call it God or universe, to work on your behalf, because you've given it the right direction. And so that's the first thing, is if you're going to manifest, you cannot overlook this step. You need to get clear about what you want, even if it's just a few pointers. And so how do you actually get clear about what you want? Well, a lot of times people focus on what they don't want. So it's, I don't want this, I don't want that. But really, this is tool I teach my clients is the clarity through contrast method. Is ask yourself, what do you not want? And then what is the polar opposite of that? Because that will tell you exactly what you do want, but you're also changing the meaning of those unwanted circumstances and allowing them to work for you versus getting stuck in that complaining mode. And then secondly, your emotions are your greatest gift. And so when you feel that emotion of jealousy or envy, it's usually telling you that, hey, that is something I want for myself. And so the next time you feel triggered when someone else has something or achieves something that you want, use that as feedback that, hey, there's a part of me, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, that also wants to experience that. And then use that clarity to start changing who you're being.
Yeah, and I love that because there's a lot of times we compare as with social media and all of that. And I remember that so many times I've been discussing with my friends, they're like, oh, this person did this or this person did that. But now I rewire my brain to say, okay, if that person is able to have that, that means that the universe is showing me that I can also have it, but I need to do the steps to get it. So what about vision boards? Do you feel they are a good tool?
So vision boards is like the icing on the cake. Once you've actually done the inner work, then vision boards or visualization or any other manifesting technique can be really useful. And the reason being is because it helps to keep your awareness on the desire that you want. And it's very easy sometimes for us to look at our current reality and then get stuck in it. But when you have a vision board and you can see images of what you want, you're able to stay focused on that vision. But also, when you're looking at a vision board regularly, it helps to reprogram your subconscious mind. We can talk more about it if we have time, but 90% of your life and what you're able to manifest comes down to your subconscious programming. And so with a vision board, you're able to naturally, without really doing much, just feed your subconscious mind the vision of what it is that you wanted to work on.
Yeah, and I think that is the most important thing that I've also learned from you is this idea of regulating our nervous system, right? Because the thing is that also if I say I want money, I need more money, but inside I don't feel safe around money or I've had certain trauma or experiences around money, then I'm not opening up the universe to it. So can you explain what does it mean by regulating your nervous system? So one, we spoke about being clear on your vision, really what you want, be as detailed as you want. And number two is regulating your nervous system and really focusing on the inner work. What does that even mean?
Yeah. So one thing to keep in mind is as humans, we are wired for safety. We're not wired for happiness. And so even though we associate joy with our desires, but if it's deemed as unsafe to our nervous system because it's so different to anything we've ever experienced, we will unknowingly self-sabotage ourselves and push away that very desire. So like you gave that money example. So as much as you can say, I want to manifest $100,000 this month, but if you've always struggled with money and it's always been tight for you, as much as your conscious mind wants that $100,000, it would feel so unsafe to your nervous system because it's so different. But by consciously regulating your nervous system, what you're doing is you're intentionally creating that feeling of safety within yourself. You're expanding your nervous system so that it can receive that unfamiliar desire without going into overdrive. And especially because this is a podcast based around parenting, this is something which I'm really glad we're talking about because most moms, and I say this because I work with a lot of moms, are living in chronic overdrive, whether it's because of fears about your kids or wanting to go above and beyond for your kids, putting your needs on the back burner, not actually taking care of yourself. That's how you're not only affecting what you're able to manifest, but it's having a ripple effect on your kids as well. Because at the end of the day is, in order for us as humans to thrive, we need to be in a safe environment. And as much as you can love your kids, but if you're not feeling safe and secure within yourself, you're also going to create a very unstable environment for your kids. And that's going to affect what they're able to manifest as they grow up as well.
Yeah, because so much of it, our beliefs and ideologies based on our childhood and our beliefs around that. And so in terms of regulating nervous system, so what would be an example of regulating your nervous system?
Yeah. So when you're looking at regulating your nervous system, it's not just about the habits you do like in the morning. So for example, meditation or going for a workout. Yes, these habits do help regulate your nervous system. But the way I approach it with my clients is from a holistic lens, is audit your entire lifestyle. Is the way you're spending your time, the people you're spending your time with, and how you are showing up, is it actually pouring energy into you or is it depleting you? And yeah, of course, we go through certain parts of our day where we have to give more, but are you actually replenishing that energy store? And it's the same way as if I keep spending money from my account and I'm not actually replenishing it with new funds, I'm going to hit a point of financial bankruptcy. And that's the same with your energy. Your energy is your manifesting currency. But if you're always giving, but you're not actually pouring back into you, you're going to hit a point of energetic bankruptcy in the form of burnout or overdrive. And ultimately you're going to find yourself living in a state of survival. And so a few ways for any mom who's listening to this to start to constantly regulate your nervous system is look at your habits, whether it's the foods you eat. What is the first thing you're doing when you wake up? Are you going on a social media and scrolling, or are you actually taking those 5 minutes out and meditating? Are you complaining all day long, or are you actually focusing on feeling grateful for how abundant your life already is? Secondly is, who are the people you're spending time with? Because it's very easy for us to get stuck hanging out the same people we've hung out with for decades. But sometimes you got to honor that this season of life, these people don't necessarily fill my cup. And you don't have to draw a wall, but managing how much you interact with people who aren't filling you up in the way you deserve. Thirdly is, and this is a big one, is your self-talk. This has become such an autopilot way of being, is living in self-judgment, self-deprecation, and again, focusing on what's not working. But even though it feels negligible, those negative thoughts are, every one of your negative thoughts are draining your own energy resources. And without realizing it, especially if you are managing your thoughts, you're spending your whole day living in dysregulation. And that's what's actually creating all the fear you're feeling, all the doubt, all the insecurity. And then it ends up being this endless loop whereby you feel burnt out, you're seeing your life manifest in the form of lack, then you feel even more triggered, and then it's just going on and on.
Yeah, and I think sometimes it just gets tough because as parents, we're just focused on our kids and all of that. So we find it hard to find that time for that self-care and to regulate our nervous system. But as you said, it can really have an effect on our kids as well. And then when it comes to like, the thing is, so many times we are in a negative space. So when we are in a negative space, I think one of the things that manifestation teaches is that you still need to find the abundance in those situations. So like, for example, if someone is wanting to be skinnier, they want to lose weight, or they want to earn a certain amount of money, but they're in a situation where they're overweight or they don't have any money, it's hard to change that mindset, right? Like, how do you, being in that such a negative situation, find the little things that you can say to yourself or do? Like, if you, like, I know one of the things about manifestation to manifest more money is to act like, you know, how would you act if you had more money, or spend a little bit? But how do you frame your mind when you're in such a negative state to actually still see that positivity or see the end of the tunnel?
Yeah. And as humans, we're wired with an inherent negativity bias. And this goes back to our caveman days, whereby as a self-protective mechanism, our brains would scan the environment for lions and tigers hiding in the bushes as a way to protect us. And if you don't actually do this conscious work to change the way you think, that inherent negativity bias is going to play up in your current circumstances as well. And going back to what you're saying is, why do we think so negatively? It's because of this bias. And that's why you need to now start to think intentionally. And initially, it's going to feel very inauthentic. It's going to feel fake. It's going to feel hard. But it's only because for so long you've been thinking a certain way. And the same way, you don't actually consciously think negatively, is just part of who you are. And so the beauty is that when you start thinking intentionally, you're creating new neural pathways. This is known as neuroplasticity. And so over time, your default way of thinking is going to be through a lens of abundance and positivity. And everything in life boils down to perception. Two siblings can be brought up in the same home, but the way they both remember their childhood could be very different. That's the same as us as humans. It's not the circumstance that's negative. It's the meaning you're attaching to it based on the belief systems you hold. And so as humans, we need to take accountability for our own way of thinking, our own beliefs, and really be honest with yourself. Is it serving me? And also, what am I normalizing? Am I normalizing negativity? Am I normalizing hard situations and struggle and whatnot? Or am I deciding that this is no longer the life I want to live? I want to live a life of joy, of ease, of abundance and convenience. But I have to now start to think in that direction. And I can play the victim card saying, but that's how it's always been. Or I can now remind myself every moment is new. But by me getting stuck in the problem, it's not doing me any favors. I need to be part of the solution now.
Yeah, I remember when I was working in Bombay, for me, I had this idea that I had to work hard to succeed. So I felt like even if I was in the Maldives with these celebrities, I was a celebrity manager, I'd be like, no, I need to be doing something. I need to show I'm working hard. And I couldn't just be. And in the last few years, after getting back into it, I realized that I don't need to be in fight or flight mode my entire life. It's okay to have that ease and that abundance. But I had to believe that I deserved it in that way. And even in terms of money and talking about, losing weight and money and all of that, simple things that I've realized have really shifted shifted my mindset after working with you as well is, for example, if you get a bill, you're like, oh my God, I have to spend 1,000 US, right? We normally think, oh my God, the bill is so high. But instead, if we rewire our brain to say, wow, I actually am able to do this and put a roof over my kids and just do that. If you rewire it, then the universe will give you more of that. Or like if I'm out at a restaurant, the bill comes so high, I'm like, wow, I feel so lucky that I'm able to actually enjoy this meal at this fancy restaurant. So I think these kind of shifts, right, would be a good example.
Yeah, and the reason why these shifts are so important, because when it comes to manifestation, the only thing that matters is the present now moment. Who are you being right now? And so you have to pay that bill anyways. You go to a meal, you have that bill is going to come in front of you, but you can control how you perceive it. And everything is neutral. The same way I can use a knife to stab you, or I can use it to cook you a really delicious meal. But depending on how I use it, it determines whether it's good or bad. Similarly, that bill that's come in front of you, it's neutral. You're assigning meaning based on your human mind that it's bad. Because why? Because there's a part of you that believes that by me letting go of this money, my pot of money is going to deplete. But if you really believe that money is an endless flow, you would feel very much at ease to let go of that money. And so when you have these negative thoughts kick in, they're also feedback, because they're telling you that there's an underlying belief that stems from lack. And that's your job as intention manifested, to decide to start to think differently so that you can create new belief systems. And whatever you assume to be true, this is known as the law of assumption. When it comes to manifestation, whatever you assume to be true, you are always proven right. And so, again, if you want to know what your beliefs are subconsciously, look at your life around you. Your entire life is a manifestation of your subconscious beliefs.
And that's why, as you said, the main thing is you first have to work on yourself and your inner feelings and how you feel before you even get to that. And because another important part of manifestation is aligning your behavior with what you want. And I remember there's always this, I've heard this statement before where this man goes to God and says, you didn't let me, I want to win the lottery and I haven't won it. And God's like, at least buy the ticket. Like, do you know what I mean? So you have to put those actions forward. And I remember as a kid, I was actually a big manifester as a kid, and I didn't even know it till later on. And at that point, I realized that I was just manifesting, like I'd imagine things and I'd just be I think also as a kid, we have this childlike innocence. So we also believe in ourselves, which is another thing I want to talk about, because I think one of the biggest blocks for manifestation is not feeling we're worthy of it. So I felt as a kid, I was able to manifest things because I believed I was worthy of it. But as we get older, life comes into play and we start doubting ourselves. And I think that's a big block. So can you talk a little bit about aligning your behavior with the actions and how important it is to feel worthy? I think that is why a lot of people cannot manifest, because they don't feel they deserve it.
Yeah. And so manifestation, as we've been discussing, it's an inner game. It all boils down to what is your relationship with yourself, because you experience life as you experience yourself. And so if you're constantly outsourcing your value and saying, okay, I'll feel good enough when I lose the weight. I'll feel good enough if my kid gets into this school. I'll feel good enough if I make X amount of money. I'll feel good enough if I'm married. Whatever it is your story you're telling yourself that your sense of self and your worth is dependent on, what you're actually saying right now is that right now I'm not worthy. I'm not good enough. And so life is saying, okay, you don't believe you're good enough. Boom, here's another circumstance to show you you're not good enough. And so as much as you want your desires, in order for them to become part of your experience, you need to be that person right now who already has it. You need to get ahead of your desires. So if you have a story in your mind that I'll feel good enough when I manifest more money, you need to start feeling good enough right now. And that's why when it comes to working on your self-worth, it's really about asking yourself, why do I believe I'm not worthy? Because we're all born inherently worthy. You think babies come on this planet thinking that, okay, I don't deserve milk. A baby wants milk, it will just cry knowing it's my birthright to receive milk. And that is for all of us, but we go through trauma, we go through circumstances, we hear things, we see things that over time chips away at our self-worth. But as fully fledged grown-ups with the mental faculties, this is our job to really recognize the ways in which we're doubting our own wholeness and start to really rewire the way we see ourselves and how we view ourselves. And a really simple way I get my clients to do so from the get-go, from our first session alone, what is 20 ways that you're proud of yourself? And most people really struggle with that question. And no matter how old you are, whether in your 30s, 40s, 50s, you've gone through so much in your life. Even you going for a workout, that is something to be proud of. But we often dismiss it because it's not a big deal. But I still don't have what I want. And we're still focusing on what we still need to do. But can you take that second and recognize, okay, we all have endless potential and more we can achieve. But can you also take stock of how far you come. And in doing so, what you're actually doing, you're rewiring your mind to actually look at yourself through a lens of abundance and to see your own wholeness. And then when you change how you see yourself, the world around you has to mirror back that increased sense of self and that perception of your own value. Because again, it's all an inner game that's unfolding in front of you.
Yeah, and let's take an example. Like, suppose we have a mom who's postpartum, so her baby's up all night and she's really struggling and she hasn't, she's trying to lose the baby weight. What are the few steps she can take in terms of the vision, the aligning her nervous system, the behaviors? What are the few things she can do to get on the manifestation path?
Yeah. So the first thing which I would say is giving yourself permission to meet yourself where you're at and honoring the season of life you're in. And so what might have worked for you 10 years ago, but probably not work for you now because you're in a different season of life. So you're not sleeping as much. You have a newborn baby to take care of, but it's about asking yourself in this season of life, what can I commit to? And can I allow myself to be flexible? A concept I really advocate with my clients is this notion of flexible consistency. And what flexible consistency is, number one, getting out of that all or nothing mindset. And secondly, it's holding yourself to a higher standard while simultaneously meeting yourself where you're at and recognizing that you can always pivot the plan as necessary. But most people get stuck in this all or nothing mindset. So, oh no, I had an overly indulgent lunch. That means I've blown my diet. Might as well go back to my old ways and start fresh on Monday. But every moment is new. But it's because you have created a story that my hard work is down the drain. You're giving yourself permission slip to go back to always. But just decide, okay, I probably ate more than I realized. I can start fresh right now. What am I waiting for Monday? Right. And then secondly is when it comes to the nervous system part, which is really important, especially if you are trying to lose weight, because when you're in a state of overdrive and dysregulation, the last thing your body cares is losing weight. It's actually holding on to that weight as a protective outer layer and a form of safety. And so when it comes to regulating your nervous system, it's okay, in this season of life, what can I commit to? So while you're breastfeeding your baby, you might not be able to write down what you're grateful for, but you can actually think what you're grateful for. You can take stock of what you're grateful for. Because you're thinking either way, might as well start to use your thoughts intentionally.
Yeah. We would basically start first accepting where you are in this phase of life and knowing there are different phases and being grateful for that. Number two, trying to, wherever you can, align your behavior in terms of changing your mindset, still being positive, focusing on the inner work. And then would you recommend that to align your behavior, it's about like starting with some walks, going to the gym, whatever you can do in terms of to actually lose weight, you do have to watch what you're eating and you do have to exercise.
Absolutely.
So how would you bring that in?
Yeah. And so I would say, again, sometimes when you are at the opposite end of the spectrum, it can feel as much as you want to lose the weight, it can feel very daunting to completely overhaul your diet and start a workout regime. And because of that overwhelm, we tend to stay stuck and keep postponing the very thing we want. Whereas even one change in your habits, the amazing thing is it creates momentum, and that momentum naturally motivates you to keep going. And so really just ask yourself, okay, what is one habit I can commit to when it comes to my diet? Whether it's drinking more water, whether it's adding protein to every meal, whether it's limiting my sugar intake, whether it's going for a 30-minute walk. But more than the intensity of the habit I'm committing to, can I focus on the consistency? Because what you're doing every day versus what you do once in a while has a far greater impact on the results. And so again, it's very easy for me to say, you know what, go for a walk an hour a day. But you might do that the first day, the second day, but by the third day, you're going to find a reason not to go, whether your kid needs you, whether you're not feeling motivated or you're tired. But if I told you, hey, Sanchita, can you commit to going for a 20-minute walk 3 times a week? It's much more likely you're able to stick with that.
Well, I think also and then you're sending that signal to the universe that I am being consistent and this is the way my life is being and I'm putting in the work so you can kind of reflect and you're showing the universe, this is who I want to be, right?
Yeah. And more than even showing the universe who you want to be, but again, is that if you're engaging in new ways of thinking and habits and you're identifying as someone different, so identifying as a consistent person, again, you're no longer being the version of you who you were even a month ago. And so the way your body responds to you is going to be very different. And the amazing thing is that sometimes we forget that our bodies are designed for homeostasis. So whatever excess weight you're carrying, your body knows exactly how to let it go. But we also have to take ownership. Okay, are the habits I'm engaging in, is the way I'm thinking about my body. Again, think about how many times you might say a statement like, my metabolism is so slow. It's so hard to lose weight after having kids. Saggy skin is normal. You know, with these stories we tell ourselves, but really ask yourself, if I was in my dream body, how would I talk about my body? How would I talk about weight loss? Because by changing even my own perceptions, the actions that I'm inclined to do is also going to look very different, because now I'm giving my subconscious mind a different direction. And so the behaviors that it initiates is also going to look very different, and therefore the results.
So what if I'm a mom who's had a baby and I'm postpartum and I put in all the work, right? So I do my gratitude journal. I take that time for self-care. I've started walking 30 minutes a day. And then I reach like few months later and I feel like the universe is not giving it to me. I'm still the same weight. I haven't lost weight, because these things do happen, right? And that's where a lot of, parents struggle with as well. So what if you feel like you are just stuck and you're doing all of it, but for some reason there is a block? What do you feel are the main reasons this happens?
Well, two things which I want to bring to your attention that you just said is, when you're living in this mindset that the universe is giving it to me, you're still showing up as a victim and outsourcing your power, thinking there's an external force that's deciding when your time is right. And so when you're not seeing the results you want to manifest, and this goes way beyond even just weight loss, take accountability in the sense, okay, where am I not being consistent? Where am I 1 foot in, 1 foot out? And this tends to be one of the biggest blocks I see when it comes to people trying to manifest their desires, is they go through days where they're all in with their desires, thinking like that new version of themselves, acting like it. But because they aren't seeing the physical proof, because impatience gets the best of them, they revert back to old stories of fear, of doubt, of wondering, where is my desire? But again, every time you ask, where are my results? Why hasn't it shown up? You're still coming at it from a lack of belief. So that's the first thing, is these subtle ways in which you're still outsourcing your power and being a victim. That's where the shift has to happen. But secondly, and this is another block I see with a lot of people when it comes to manifestation, is the lack of self-belief. Because if you don't actually believe in your own innate inherent power to change your reality, you can create the most beautiful vision board, you can write down all the affirmations, but that doubt is still going to keep you in a state of lack. And so really, and this is what we're talking about when I say doing the inner work, it's you need to actually step into your own power and have belief in your own self and the power of your own energy. But also you need to really ask yourself, if something is not manifesting the way that I want, what am I doing? And again, taking accountability, but what way am I not fully going all in with my desires? But more importantly is, how can I now recommit to the very thing that I want? And it's very easy, again, to get in that state of it's not working. But if you believe it's not working, you're also going to see that proved that you're right.
Yeah. And I had an experience where, like, for example, I'm a child nutritionist. So obviously I have like my dream clients that I'd love to work with.
Yeah.
I try and work on manifesting it and all of that. And it's so interesting because sometimes I'll put in like, I'd love to be the nutritionist for this person's child. It took me a while to understand that I write this down and I do all my work, but then I also have to keep doing and keep working on myself. And then what I also realized is that the universe will also give it to me when I'm ready for it to handle it. So,
Absolutely.
for example, I was manifesting to be on Masu Minawala's podcast, which I did last month. And I remember I'd written about her in my People I Look Up To and all of that. And I'd contacted her 2 years ago. And I remember I kept saying, I want her to work with me and I want it to happen. And it just wasn't happening. But I think what really helped me was the fact that I didn't hone on, okay, it has to be this exact person. I just kept doing my work. I kept learning, growing, showing the universe that I'm helping other people and not being so also obsessed with it. And then I felt like the universe gave it to me when I was actually ready for it. And I think that's also sometimes in life, we get a bit greedy, we get a bit needy, we get a bit impatient. And I think for me, that was a great experience to show me that just believe in yourself, keep at it, and everything will come at the right time. So what do you feel about things happening at the right time for us?
I 100% agree with what you just shared about manifesting when you're ready for it. And so as much as our ego wants our desires right now, but most of us don't realize that if something, like I mentioned earlier, if something is so different to what you've experienced before, if it does manifest right now, it would actually send your nervous system into overdrive because of the unfamiliarity. And secondly, it's as much as you say you want a desire, so let's just use the money example, because I feel like that's a pretty generic one, is as much as you want to manifest more money, but if right now you have poor money management habits, or you haven't sorted out your taxes, or you still have fear on money, when that money comes to you, you would actually self-sabotage it in a way that you would probably overspend, and you would find ways to let it go because you can't handle it. And so really, whatever it is you're manifesting right now, really ask yourself, how can I get ready for it? And I remember when like a couple of years ago, when I first started my podcast, I used to, and this was in 2021, I used to script out my episodes. And then a year later, as I started getting more comfortable, I realized to myself that, okay, one of my desires is to do more public speaking events. And so I really asked myself, okay, how can I now get ready for that very desire? Intuitive nudge that came up was, you need to start talking intuitively on your podcast. No more scripting, just pull out the mic and just speak from your heart. And so I started doing that. And a couple of months into it, really getting comfortable in my own voice, that's when I started attracting these amazing public speaking opportunities that, flew me across the world. And it was just incredible. And that's why when you're not seeing the desires manifest for you, just ask yourself, Rod, I can either complain about it and create a story, it's not working, but how can I get even more ready with the knowingness that it's coming to me? Because here's the thing is, you don't wait until you're on your holiday, your beach holiday, to get ready for it. You shop months in advance. You create the itinerary, you research the city you're going to, with the knowingness that I'm going to be on that holiday in a couple of months' time. And when you're not actually taking the proactive measures to get ready for your desires, it usually stems from doubt, because you still don't believe it's going to happen. Because if you're in your heart, if you deep down knew it was manifesting, you would be using this time very differently.
Yeah, exactly what I did. I mean, we've done like 55 episodes on the modern Indian parent, and I felt like doing the podcast prepared me to be a guest on an actual podcast, just like how you were talking about doing the unscripted episodes. One of the last questions I have for you is, I have so many friends who come to me and say, like moms, they're like, we want to start a business, or, but we're so caught up in mom life, and we're scared. We're nervous about how people will respond, or how, I feel like sometimes as moms, we forget about ourselves. And luckily I was able to step out of it and work on my business. But so many of my friends are so nervous. So what advice would you give them in terms of manifesting to kind of feel confident again that they can actually work and they can do well and they can succeed? Because that fear is so prevalent amongst moms.
Yeah. Well, the first thing which comes to mind is you just brought a whole new life into this world. Like that, if you can do that, you can do anything. But really ask yourself, in 20 years' time, in 30 years' time, if I'm at the exact same position career-wise, how am I going to feel about myself? And also, your kids are not listening to you, they're watching you. And really ask them, what kind of kids do I want to raise? Do I want to raise empowered kids? Do I want to raise confident kids? Or do I want to raise kids who are living in fear, living in doubt, waiting constantly for that perfect moment before they take action? Because the way they see you show up is exactly who they're going to become. And so if you are finding reasons to not take action, think about the ripple effect it's going to have on your kids as they see you stepping into your own power and doing something that fulfills you beyond just being a mom.
And I think one of the biggest things is that you can take small steps. Like, first of all, just working on simple things to regulate your nervous system. For me, what always helps is listening to podcasts, reading books, like self-inspiration books, and also working with you as well. Just creating and being in a community where everyone's uplifting each other. So to end this, I'd just like to ask you, what are the resources that you feel can be a go-to for moms who want to know more about manifestation? Of course, you can talk about how you can help as well.
So the first thing which I will share is, especially as this is a podcast as well, I'm assuming that your listeners enjoy podcasts. I have a podcast myself, the Fit and Fulfill podcast, where I chat about all things mindset, manifestation, and personal development. And I think we have about like 460 episodes till date. Wow. So lots to go back and listen to. And also I'm on social media at Khushbu.Kway, and that's fully focused on manifestation. Whether it's private coaching, group coaching, I have different options in terms of how we can work together. Just send me a DM on Instagram and then let me know a bit more about what you want to manifest, and I can walk you through what would be your best option. And aside from my own resources, whether it's a YouTube video or a book, start to consume more knowledge and just understand how the process works. Because with a bit of, and again, don't get stuck in consuming more and more content, but just start to get familiar with the basics. Because I know for me, that really helped, just seeing how it's impacted other people's lives, but also just understanding how the process actually works. Because when you really see how systematic manifestation is, at least for me, I found I was much more inclined to give it a shot versus thinking it was just this mythical concept of putting it out there and then seeing it mirror back to you.
Yeah, I think when you actually read about it, you realize how much work it takes and the self-worth and actually aligning all these things actually make it sound more practical, more real.
Absolutely.
And I think it's more people who are looking at it from the outside that are thinking, oh, it's some magical, what is this silliness and all of that. But I think both of us know that it's way more than that. And honestly, thank you so much. This has been such a great, insightful episode. And I'm so excited for all the parents to listen. And we will be posting your details below as well so everyone can contact you. Thank you for being here.
Oh, Sanchita, thank you so much for having me. It has been such a joy to chat to you about manifestation. And I'm excited to hear the takeaways your listeners have from this episode.
Thank you.